A family of 4 left a birthday dinner on a rainy Tuesday evening and never arrived home. The Hendersons were last seen walking to their car in the restaurant parking lot, laughing and carrying leftover cake. 6 years of silence followed. Search teams combed every road, every trail, every possible route they could have taken. Then a lone hiker's chance discovery in an unmarked forest ravine changed everything. Welcome back to Mystery Files, where we dive deep into cases that keep investigators awake at night. I'm your host, and today we're examining a disappearance that stumped authorities for over half a decade. This isn't just another missing persons case. The evidence we'll uncover challenges everything police initially believed about what happened that stormy night. I'm going to walk you through every twist, every clue, and every theory that emerged from this baffling investigation. But here's what makes this case truly extraordinary. The discovery that finally broke it wide open came from the most unexpected place imaginable. So stick with me until the end, because the final revelation will completely change how you see this entire mystery. The Henderson family seemed like any other suburban household you'd find in small-town Oregon. David Henderson, 42, worked as a regional sales manager for an agricultural equipment company. His colleagues described him as reliable, methodical, the kind of guy who always double-checked his route before long drives. Sarah Henderson, 39, taught 3rd grade at the local elementary school, where she was beloved by students and parents alike. She had a habit of keeping detailed journals and was known for her meticulous planning of family activities. Their daughter Emma was 16, a junior in high school who played varsity soccer and dreamed of studying marine biology. Friends remember her as outgoing and responsible, someone who never missed curfew and always texted her parents when plans changed. 8-year-old Michael was the family's little comedian, obsessed with dinosaurs and magic tricks. He carried a backpack everywhere, stuffed with his collection of fossils and a deck of cards he was learning to shuffle. David had a particular passion for vintage cars and spent weekends restoring a 1967 Mustang in their garage. The family drove a practical silver Honda Accord, which David maintained religiously. Sarah often joked that he treated that car better than he treated himself, checking the oil every month and keeping detailed maintenance records in the glove compartment. The last confirmed day in the Henderson family's life began ordinarily enough. It was Sarah's mother's 70th birthday, and the extended family gathered at Romano's Italian restaurant downtown for an early dinner celebration. The restaurant's security cameras captured the family arriving at 5:15 in the afternoon, with Michael skipping ahead while Emma walked beside her parents. Multiple witnesses confirmed the family enjoyed their meal and seemed in good spirits throughout the evening. Sarah's sister later told investigators that Sarah had been excited about a weekend camping trip they were planning for the following month. David discussed work with his brother-in-law, mentioning a successful client meeting scheduled for Thursday. The family paid their bill at 7:45 and spent another 15 minutes saying goodbye to relatives in the parking lot. Restaurant cameras show them walking to their silver Honda Accord at exactly 8:03 p.m. David is seen checking his phone briefly before getting behind the wheel. This would be the last verified sighting of the Henderson family alive. Weather reports from that evening show clear conditions until 8:20 p.m., when a sudden storm system moved in from the coast. Heavy rain began falling just 17 minutes after the family left the restaurant. The National Weather Service issued a warning for hazardous driving conditions and poor visibility. The family's cell phones pinged the tower near Highway 18 at 8:31 p.m., approximately 15 miles from the restaurant and still 23 miles from their home. This location placed them on the most direct route they typically took. After this ping, all 4 phones went silent simultaneously. When the Henderson family failed to answer calls from Sarah's mother that night, relatives initially assumed they'd simply gone to bed early. But when David missed an important work meeting the next morning and Emma didn't show up for soccer practice, Sarah's sister drove to their house and found it empty, mail piling up, and the garage door opener remote sitting on the kitchen counter. Police launched a missing persons investigation within 24 hours. The case quickly escalated when officers discovered that none of the family's bank accounts, credit cards, or phones had shown any activity since the previous evening. David's employer confirmed he'd left work Tuesday, planning to return Wednesday morning. Emma's soccer coach said she'd been looking forward to an upcoming tournament. Within 48 hours, over 200 volunteers joined professional search teams to comb the highways and rural roads between the restaurant and the Henderson home. Search dogs traced the family's route along Highway 18, but lost the scent at mile marker 47, where a side road branched off into heavily forested state land. Local residents shared their knowledge of the area's hazards with searchers. The region was known for its steep ravines, unmarked logging roads, and seasonal streams that could turn treacherous during storms. Some mentioned the area's black bear population, though attacks on humans were extremely rare. Others pointed to a dangerous cliff section about 10 miles off the main highway, where 2 other vehicles had gone over the edge in previous decades. Search helicopters flew grid patterns over hundreds of square miles, but the dense forest canopy made spotting a vehicle nearly impossible from above. Ground teams explored every accessible road and trail, often hiking miles into wilderness areas that seemed unlikely routes for a family sedan. Early theories about the family's disappearance centered on several possibilities. Investigators first considered whether the family might have voluntarily disappeared, but this scenario was quickly dismissed. Bank records showed no unusual withdrawals or transfers in the weeks before their disappearance. David and Sarah had no known financial troubles, legal problems, or relationship issues that might motivate them to flee. The possibility of car theft or carjacking seemed more plausible given the family's last known location on a relatively isolated stretch of highway. However, no witnesses reported seeing suspicious vehicles or activity in the area that night. The storm conditions would have made criminal activity more difficult, and random encounters less likely. A more troubling theory involved foul play, possibly connected to David's work in agricultural sales, which required him to carry samples of expensive equipment. Investigators examined whether he might have been targeted by criminals who followed the family from the restaurant. This theory gained traction when detectives learned that David had recently closed a significant deal worth over $100,000. The challenging terrain complicated every search effort. The Forest Service estimated that thousands of unmarked logging roads crisscrossed the region, many overgrown and impassable except on foot. Aerial searches were hampered by weather, and ground teams could only cover a fraction of the vast wilderness area each day. As weeks turned to months, the intensive search efforts gradually scaled back. The first anniversary of the disappearance brought a candlelight vigil attended by hundreds of community members. Sarah's students made cards and drawings that were displayed at the memorial service. Emma's soccer team retired her jersey number and dedicated their season to her memory. Family friends organized annual fundraisers to keep the investigation active. Local businesses donated time and resources, including fuel for search vehicles and meals for volunteer teams. The story attracted regional media attention, appearing on missing persons websites and true crime podcasts that brought tips from across the country. Sarah's mother never gave up hope, spending her savings on private investigators and psychics. She organized monthly search parties that continued for 3 years, with dedicated volunteers returning to remote areas that official teams had already covered. Her determination inspired others, but after 30 months, formal funding for search operations ended due to budget constraints. The case file remained open, but with no new leads or evidence, it essentially went cold. Detective Maria Santos, who led the investigation, kept the Henderson family's photo on her desk as a daily reminder of the unsolved case. She followed up on tips that occasionally came in, but none led to breakthrough discoveries. 6 years and 4 months after the Henderson family vanished, weekend backpacker Jake Morrison decided to explore an unmarked trail he'd spotted on his GPS app. Morrison, an experienced hiker who documented his adventures for a popular outdoor blog, was drawn to areas that didn't appear on official trail maps. The trail he chose wound through old-growth forest, approximately 25 miles east of where the original search teams had focused their efforts. Morrison later described feeling like he was walking through untouched wilderness, with no signs of human activity anywhere along the path. 3 hours into his hike, Morrison heard what sounded like metal creaking in the wind. Following the sound, he pushed through dense underbrush and found himself standing at the edge of a steep ravine. Looking down, he could barely make out the rusted roof of a vehicle nestled among fallen trees and thick vegetation. Morrison carefully climbed down into the ravine and discovered a silver Honda Accord, nose down in a creek bed that had been dry for months. The license plate was partially obscured by mud and leaves, but he could make out enough letters to know this wasn't a recent accident. He immediately called 911 and waited at the scene until emergency responders arrived. Within hours, the license plate number confirmed what investigators already suspected, based on Morrison's description. After 6 years and 4 months, the Henderson family's car had finally been found. The discovery triggered the immediate reopening of the case and the deployment of a full forensic team to the remote location. The car's condition surprised investigators. Despite sitting in the elements for over 6 years, the Honda was remarkably well preserved. The front end showed minor damage, consistent with hitting trees during a descent into the ravine, but the impact didn't appear severe enough to cause fatal injuries to the occupants. Most significantly, the car's doors were locked and showed no signs of being forced open from the inside. This detail immediately raised questions about how the family had exited the vehicle and where they had gone afterward. If they'd been injured in the crash, their remains should have been found nearby. If they'd survived, why hadn't they sought help? Inside the vehicle, forensic teams discovered several important pieces of evidence. Emma's torn backpack was wedged under the front passenger seat, its contents scattered throughout the car. Michael's dinosaur book lay open on the back seat, water-damaged but still recognizable. Sarah's purse was missing entirely, along with David's wallet and all 4 family members' cell phones. The most intriguing discovery was David's work phone, found under the driver's seat with a cracked screen but an intact SIM card. Investigators had previously assumed all phones were destroyed or lost, but this device had been protected from the worst water damage by its location in the vehicle. Forensic technicians carefully extracted data from the damaged phone and made a startling discovery. The last entry in David's text messages was an auto-drafted message that had never been sent. The message, addressed to his brother-in-law, read simply, "We're off," and then stopped. The timestamp showed it was composed at 8:54 p.m. on the night of the disappearance, 23 minutes after the family's last confirmed cell tower ping. Advanced LiDAR scanning technology, unavailable during the original investigation, revealed a network of hidden logging roads that extended far beyond where the car was found. These roads, overgrown and nearly invisible from above, could have provided access routes for vehicles that wouldn't have been detected by the original search teams. The LiDAR data showed that one particular logging road passed within a quarter mile of the ravine where the Honda was discovered. This road connected to a maze of similar routes that eventually led back to maintained Forest Service roads miles away from the family's intended path home. With new evidence and advanced technology, investigators developed 3 primary theories about what happened to the Henderson family. The first theory suggested that David took a wrong turn during the storm, possibly while trying to avoid flooded sections of Highway 18. The car went off the logging road into the ravine, but the family survived the initial crash. According to this theory, they may have attempted to walk out of the forest, but became lost in the darkness and heavy rain. The region's wildlife population, including black bears and cougars, could have posed threats to the family. Over time, their remains might have been scattered by animals, explaining why no bodies were found near the vehicle. The second theory involved criminal activity. Someone may have forced the family off the main highway and onto the remote logging roads. The perpetrator could have staged the car accident to make it appear the family died in a crash, while actually taking them elsewhere. The locked doors and missing personal items supported this theory. The third and most controversial theory suggested that the family staged their own disappearance. Investigators had discovered a previously unknown offshore bank account linked to David's business activities. While the account contained only a modest sum, it demonstrated that David had financial arrangements his family wasn't aware of. Some theorized that the family assumed new identities and started over somewhere else. Today, the Henderson case remains officially open with several active lines of investigation. Advanced DNA testing is being conducted on trace fibers found in the vehicle that don't match any family members. These fibers could provide crucial evidence about whether other individuals were present in the car after the family's disappearance. The reward for information leading to the family's location has grown to $150,000. Funded by community donations and matching contributions from local businesses. Sheriff Maria Santos, now retired but still following the case, recently stated, "Somebody out there knows what happened to this family. After all these years, it's time for the truth to come out." Digital forensics experts continue analyzing data recovered from David's phone, hoping to find additional messages or location data that might provide new clues. The auto-drafted text message remains one of the most tantalizing pieces of evidence, suggesting David was trying to communicate something important in his final moments. If you have any information about the Henderson family's disappearance, please contact the Polk County Sheriff's Office. Even the smallest detail could be the key that finally solves this mystery. What do you think happened to David, Sarah, Emma, and Michael Henderson? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on this case and other unsolved mysteries. Until next time, keep questioning everything.